The 2014 NFL Draft is officially open.
The 2014 NFL Draft had some serious talent. Khalil Mack, Odell Beckham Jr., and Aaron Donald, just to name a few. But like most years, the biggest storylines leading up to the draft revolved around quarterbacks. In the first 2 rounds, there would be 5 quarterbacks selected that went on to become recognizable starters in the NFL. And each of these 5 guys carved out storybook careers in their own right. But keep in mind, I didn't say these stories were all sunshine and rainbows. Now, before we dive into the video, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes tickets for football games, basketball games, or other events from all across the web and puts them into one area, making buying simple. They put these tickets on a scale from 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Plus, if you want to save $20, first-time buyers can use my promo code KTO at checkout. Shout out to SeatGeek for the sponsor.
With the 3rd pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Blake Bortles, quarterback, Central Florida.
Coming out of UCF, Blake Bortles was looked at as the most raw quarterback prospect of the top 5, but he also had the biggest star potential, hence why Jacksonville drafted him. Entering a rebuilding Jaguars team, Bortles was pressed into the starting role instantly. Unfortunately, the first season was brutal. He threw more interceptions than touchdowns, was sacked more than any quarterback in the NFL, and the team went 3-10 with him as the starter. 2015, however, things seemed to be on the upswing. He was 7th in the NFL in passing yards and tied for 2nd in passing touchdowns. But this also came with a cost. He led the league in interceptions, and his QBR ranked 23rd, sticking him right behind Brock Osweiler. Then the following season, he didn't have the same production, but was still a turnover machine. 3 seasons in, and this team was still losing, a lot, and Bortles did not look like a franchise quarterback. Entering 2017, fans and media were ready for the team to move on. Clearly, Jacksonville wasn't going to get any better with Bortles at, oh, wait a minute.
Bortles, deep shot, what a catch! 2nd and 9. Floating while he is open, and that is the Jacksonville touchdown! Blake Bortles, who has played well today, deep, and he's got it!
Surprising to just about anybody who paid attention to NFL football, the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars caught fire. All of a sudden, they were a legitimate contender, and Bortles was balling out on occasion. He put up some of the most efficient numbers of his career, leading Jacksonville to the playoffs. They would gut out a win in the wild card versus the Bills, and then Bortles played the best game of his career at Pittsburgh the following week. Somehow, someway, the Jaguars had managed to go from bottom feeder to going against Tom Brady and the Patriots in the AFC Championship. And despite multiple chances to win that game, they lost in dramatic fashion. Now, ultimately, this was a pretty big turnaround season for Bortles, but this team was ultimately carried by their defense to this point. To try to just keep together what they had, the team would offer Bortles a pretty sizable contract extension, one that was pretty controversial at the time. The team immediately regretted that decision. Bortles and the Jags took a huge step back after that playoff run, enough so to get Bortles benched at one point. And despite that contract extension, he was released, going on to sign with LA to be the backup behind Jared Goff. Recently, Bortles has been sort of a journeyman practice squad guy, and as to why he can't even seem to get a job as a backup, my understanding of it comes down to this. Backup NFL quarterbacks tend to be less gifted, but they're efficient and don't turn the ball over. They're usually a decent game manager. Bortles did not fall into these categories. He was reckless and turnover prone. Not exactly the right fit for this situation. But anyways, let's move on to the next quarterback.
With the 22nd pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Johnny Manziel, quarterback, Texas A&M.
Taken 22nd overall, Johnny Manziel was easily the biggest story of that night. As Manziel prepped to wreck the league in Cleveland, The national media and even guys like LeBron showed up to Brown's training camp to see some Manziel magic unfold. But it took a while for Manziel to even get on the field. The Browns started 7-4 with Brian Hoyer at quarterback, but due to pressures of the fans and the owner, they eventually benched Hoyer in favor of Manziel. This failed miserably.
Manziel's going to keep. Back to throw. Looking. And it's going to be intercepted. A lot of time. Stepping up, in trouble, gets away, slings it end zone in traffic. Intercepted by Jones. Ill-advised throw.
His first start of his NFL career was a brutal one. It ended in a 30-0 loss, where Manziel only threw for 80 yards and 2 interceptions. He would get hurt the following week, and that pretty much wrapped up his rookie year, at least on the field. By the end of that season, one thing was pretty evident. Johnny Manziel had some serious issues off the field.
Current Cleveland Brown Johnny Manziel has gone into rehab.
Manziel entered rehab, a facility, last Wednesday.
After rehab, he seemed like a changed man, at least to the fans. There was going to be no more money sign, he seemed more mature in interviews, but his on-the-field play was never better than inconsistent and injury-riddled. He also proved later on that he wasn't as mature as he had seemed. Things had gotten so bad that they went on to release him following 2015. Amazingly, faster than Jamarcus Russell was released by the Raiders. Johnny Manziel's football career fell from grace pretty hard. He failed in the CFL, then the AAF, and he's now retired for good, after doing some weird things like that football league in which the fans called plays. Currently, he has a plan to try to become a pro golfer. I guess we'll see how that goes, but as far as a more in-depth covering of his football career, Set the Edge covers exactly why he became a bust pretty well in this video a few years back.
32nd pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback, Louisville.
Praised for his intelligence, decision-making, and work ethic at Louisville, Teddy Bridgewater wasn't seen as having the same kind of upside as the previous two guys, but he was the most day one ready. He entered his rookie year as the backup to Christian Ponder, but he quickly took up the starting role following an injury. Even though the numbers don't pop off the screen, Bridgewater's rookie year was promising. He set multiple franchise records as well as a couple NFL records as a rookie. 2015 was another step in the right direction. He led Minnesota to an 11-5 record, achieved Pro Bowl honors, and played in the wild card versus the Seahawks in one of the coldest NFL games of all time. And sorry, Vikings fans.
McDermott is the snapper, and the kick is no good.
Here's where things started to take a turn for the worst.
I want to begin today with the news out of Winter Park and the Vikings practice and the injury to quarterback Teddy Bridgewater.
It was a non-contact injury. He was fading back to pass and his knee gave way. The way players reacted, the emotions of it told you this was a serious injury, and it became a very surreal scene out here at Winter Park today.
This injury would leave him out for a projected time of 17 to 19 months. Despite receiving a standing ovation when he was able to return, the Vikings had already moved on. The team declined Bridgewater's fifth-year option, and he became a free agent following 2017. He would have a brief stint with the Jets, then became the backup in New Orleans, where he eventually was 5-0 as a starter. Following that, he started in Carolina for a year, and now he starts in Denver. Although he's had his moments where he's proved to be a legitimate starter, no team has really rallied around him for the long term since his devastating injury. This may be due to his lack of upside with a rather average arm. At this point, he will most likely continue to carve out a role as a journeyman, similar to guys like Josh McCown and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
With the 36th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the mighty Oakland Raiders select, I know you love us, Derek Carr, quarterback, Fresno State.
As the younger brother to former #1 overall pick David Carr, Derek was a statistical monster at Fresno State, putting up video game-like numbers. But Things like his lack of pocket presence and being mistake-prone at times led him to being the 4th quarterback selected in 2014. Like Bortles and Bridgewater, Carr found himself as the main starter right away, and after a tough rookie year, Carr began to excel by putting up over 30 touchdowns and almost getting the Raiders to 500 in 2015. At this point, the organization started to feel like they found their guy to build around, but all that was lacking was true team success. That was delivered in 2016.
They are going for 2 in the win. Wow. 34-33. Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here, Link?
He's going for
again, a 2-pointer to go up by a point. Carr out of the shotgun. Looks left, throws a lob for Michael Crabtree. He caught it! He caught it! He caught it! The Raiders have the lead! 35-34! Sweet revenge for Michael Crabtree.
If you remember, that was a wild year for the Raiders. They went for a win by going for 2. Carr had 7 game-winning drives, and overall, the team with Derek Carr at quarterback was 12-3. I even made a video about why Derek Carr deserved the MVP back in 2016. But like most things Raiders fans deal with, their luck train ran off the tracks. And in Week 16, Carr suffered a leg injury that kept him out of the playoffs. This was a truly bittersweet moment for Raider Nation because it had been years since they made the playoffs, but they were stuck with Connor Cook, who proved to be a liability. Over the next few years, questions were raised about Derek Carr. His efficiency went down, and the team got worse. It got bad enough that everyone began to wonder whether or not Carr's future was in Oakland. With Gruden coming in to change things, he had a decision to either start from scratch or try to bring Carr back to his best self. He decided to trust in Carr, and in 2020, Carr played the most efficient he had ever been, putting up career bests in passer rating and QBR. Carr certainly proved to be worth a second-round pick. Although he's never made it into the elite quarterback discussion, he did make it to 3 straight Pro Bowls at one point. And it's even more impressive knowing how dysfunctional the Raiders have been over the last 20 years. Out of all the quarterbacks we've discussed, Carr has produced the most by far. But we still have one guy left.
In the 67th pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, your New England and my New England Patriots select Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback, Eastern Illinois.
Last and definitely not least, Jimmy Garoppolo flew under the radar during the start of his career. Similar to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, the formula here was to have him sit and learn behind Tom Brady for his last few years before he retired. The only problem was Brady doesn't seem to age like others apparently. So Jimmy Garoppolo being the future wasn't a major talking point in 2014 and 2015. But everything changed in 2016 when Brady was suspended for the first 4 games. In that time, Garoppolo started and played incredibly. He went undefeated in his first 3 starts, which did end in injury. But this string of performances was impressive enough to raise questions about the future QB spot. The question that loomed was it time to let Brady go? This became an internal battle between Belichick and Kraft, which eventually ended in Kraft wanting to keep Brady, and ultimately, the team shipped Garoppolo off to San Francisco midway through the 2017 season. In that same year, amazingly, when Garoppolo started games for San Francisco that season, he went undefeated, giving him a 7-0 start to his career. Incredibly, despite only starting 7 career games, the Niners offered him a $137.5 million contract, just under $20 million per win. And the biggest buzzkill ever for Niners fans happened in 2018, when Garoppolo tore his ACL 3 games into the season. This raised major question marks because this dude hadn't played many games, yet had sustained multiple serious injuries already in his pro career. 2019 would definitely put the haters to bed though. Garoppolo was impeccable in Kyle Shanahan's system, and they would go all the way to the Super Bowl versus the Chiefs. With a lead in the 4th quarter, It seemed all but destined for Garoppolo to pull it off and make the Niners look like the genius in that trade. But Patrick Mahomes turned on the Jets, and the Chiefs went on to win. Since that Super Bowl loss, things have never been quite the same for Garoppolo. He returned back to that questioned state from before. After a disappointing season in 2020, where he saw time on injured reserve, no one really knows what's in store for the future of his career, as he currently sits as the placeholder for Trey Lance. Honestly, it's pretty crazy to look back on the days in which people thought Brady was going to be replaced by Garoppolo in New England back in 2016. Just 5 years later, both don't play for the Patriots. Garoppolo, at 30 years old, is fighting to keep a starting job. Meanwhile, Brady is 44, somehow still playing and fresh off a Super Bowl win. And he's still making plays like this.
3rd down and 4. Gronk's in there. Brady gonna run for it. Right down the middle of the field, and he slides down. Tom showing off the wheels tonight. Pickup of 11.
Nothing fires up Tom Brady more than using his legs. Everybody tells him how bad of an athlete he is. He can't run, can't do this. Everybody plays 2 deep man under against him, and look at him just drop the ball.